I knew my relationship was doomed the moment I was holding a platter of charred hot dogs. It happened at a buddy's backyard cookout a few weeks earlier. I was still poking at the grill, trying to rescue whatever wasn't completely ruined, when I caught the sound of my girlfriend's laugh drifting over from the picnic table. It was that exaggerated, spotlight-seeking giggle she pulled out whenever she wanted every eye on her. All her friends were there, the same ones who always treated me like I was the free furniture that came with the apartment. When I heard my own name mentioned, I stopped scraping the grates and listened. Seriously, Daniel brings me flowers just because. Jenna was bragging. He even showed up with soup when I was sick last week. My guy best friend treats me better than my actual boyfriend ever has. She was talking about me. Then came the ripple of cruel, knowing laughter from the table. Like they'd all been in on the joke for months that I didn't spin around. I didn't slam the tongs down. I just stared at those pathetic blackened sausages and felt this weird, icy calm wash over me. I even cracked a small smile. For months I'd been painted as the insecure, controlling jerk because I wasn't comfortable with Daniel. Anytime I brought up how close they were, I was the problem. Hearing her say it out loud, hearing them all laugh, was like finally getting the lab results after feeling sick for ages. The issue wasn't my jealousy. The issue was that I'd been entered into a contest I never agreed to play, and the other contestant was the guy she texted nonstop. That I took a slow breath, plated whatever food was still edible, turned around with a perfectly neutral expression, and walked over. I set the platter down right in front of Jenna and looked her dead in the eye. "Daniel sounds like a stand-up dude," I said, voice completely level. The laughter evaporated. Her friends swapped awkward glances. Jenna's cheeks went red, but she recovered fast. "He is," she shot back, a little too sharp. "He's an amazing friend." "I can tell," I said, grabbing a water bottle. "I've probably been too paranoid about it. You two clearly have something special. I shouldn't stand in the way." The expression on her face was priceless, half shock, half victory. She thought I'd finally rolled over. She thought I'd accepted second place. She had no clue I wasn't surrendering. I was accepting the declaration of war she'd just made in public, and I had zero plans of losing. For the next few weeks, I became the most chill, supportive boyfriend on the planet. That I told her to go have fun whenever she mentioned plans with Daniel. When they were heading out to dinner, instead of going quiet, I'd say, "Perfect, enjoy yourselves." Tell him I said what's up. If his text popped up during our movie, I'd hit pause and go, "Answer it, could be important." I was building something. I knew Daniel. I'd seen the way his eyes lingered when he thought I wasn't looking. He wasn't her friend. He was a scavenger waiting for the right moment. Jenna ate up the attention, but she also liked the safety net of having me, the reliable guy who covered half the rent and never made waves. She wanted the thrill without the consequences. My strategy was straightforward. Remove the safety net and give the vulture the opening he'd been praying for, in front of the biggest possible audience. Our friend circle has this massive annual Halloween bash. It's the social event of the year. Perfect stage. Update 1: roughly a month after the barbecue, everything unfolded exactly as I expected. Actually better. My new cool boyfriend persona worked like a charm. It was like handing an addict an open pharmacy. Jenna let her guard down completely. Daniel went from occasional drop-ins to basically living at our place. I'd come home from work and find him sprawled on my couch, eating my groceries. Jenna always had an excuse ready. Daniel had a bad day. I told him to come over. Or he was nearby and brought that coffee we like. Notice it was always we. Yet he never once asked how my day was. I played along perfectly. Greeted him, asked polite questions, then disappeared into my home office to finish some work. From there, I could hear everything. Their private jokes, her playful swats on his arm, the whole routine. I was just giving them room to practice their little show. On the financial front, things got ridiculous. Daniel started showing up with little gifts, her favorite author's new release, some fancy tea she'd mentioned once. Jenna would practically parade them in front of me. Isn't he the sweetest? A $10 book apparently outweighed the $700 I put toward rent every month. In her head, the book meant more because it was thoughtful. So I started keeping records. I made a private spreadsheet. One column for every bill I paid: rent, utilities, internet, insurance, vacation fund. Another column for Daniel's contributions: one paperback, one bag of beans, a can of soup. The contrast was hilarious. With Halloween closing in, I began setting the final pieces. I knew Jenna hadn't decided on a costume yet. One night I casually said, "We could do a couples thing, you and me." She hesitated. Actually, Daniel and I were laughing about going as angel and devil. It's just silly. Instead of reacting, I laughed. That's genius. You two would crush it. I'll just throw on some vampire fangs, no big deal. Relief flooded her face. She thought she'd dodged drama. In reality, I just handed her the perfect prop. Angel and devil, literally paired for the whole night. The day of the party, I pulled a small but crucial move. The hosts, Sarah and Tom, are good friends of mine. I texted Tom that I was planning to propose to Jenna that night and needed it to be a total surprise. I asked if their photographer buddy could hang around our group later to catch the moment. Tom was pumped, swore secrecy, and guaranteed the guy would be ready. Of course, there was no ring and no proposal, but there would be a professional photographer locked and loaded. That night we rolled up. Jenna in a flowing white dress and glowing halo. Daniel in red with horns and a plastic pitchfork. They looked like they'd ordered their costumes together. I went basic vampire, cape, fake blood, the works. Felt appropriate. I was there to bleed them dry. First hour, I was the ideal hands-off boyfriend. Grabbed her drinks, told her she looked incredible, then let her loose. She immediately glued herself to Daniel, and they started working the room as a duo. My only job was keeping Daniel's cup full. Every time it dipped low, another beer or shot magically appeared. "Bro, keep up." I'd laugh. He ate it up. He thought we were suddenly best buddies. By 11 p.m. he was loud, cocky, and stumbling. Jenna was giggling at everything that came out of his mouth, completely blind to the line he was about to cross. I caught Tom's subtle nod across the room. Photographer in position, blending in with the crowd. Showtime. I positioned myself with a cluster of mutual friends, the same ones who'd laughed at the barbecue. Facing away from Jenna and Daniel, but keeping them in the corner of my eye. I was broadcasting loud and clear. Coast is clear. Nobody's watching. I saw him lean in, hands sliding to the small of her back. She was still smiling, thinking it was just their usual flirty banter. He whispered something. Her smile flickered. Then he lunged, full sloppy, drunken kiss attempt right in the middle of the living room under the fairy lights, with easily 24 people around. Camera flash. Once. Twice. Update 2. The second Daniel's lips went for hers. The vibe in the room flipped like a switch. Jenna shoved him off so hard he nearly fell. Her angelic face twisted into pure mortification. Daniel blinked, confused and swaying, like a kid who'd just been scolded for the first time. Conversations around them died. The same friends who'd laughed at me weeks ago now stood frozen, jaws on the floor. The photographer, still thinking he was documenting pre-proposal drama, kept firing away. Jenna's panicked gaze swept the room, landing on me. Still turned away, apparently oblivious. Her expression shifted from horror to fury. She thought I'd abandoned her, left her exposed. She stormed over, grabbed my arm hard enough to bruise. "Did you see that?" She hissed that I turned slowly, putting on a confused face. "See what?" I was catching up with Mike. "Daniel just tried to kiss me. In front of everyone." I glanced over at Daniel being awkwardly steered toward the kitchen by another guy, then back at her. Whoa, is he wasted or something? Of course he's wasted. You were supposed to stay near me. Where were you? Here it was, the moment I'd waited months for. I kept my voice low but loud enough for nearby ears. "I was giving you space. You've been attached to him all night. Didn't want to play jealous boyfriend." Her face collapsed. She had nothing. For once, the logic she'd weaponized against me was turned back on her, and she couldn't dodge it. She tried to drag me out of the party. I didn't budge. "I'm not leaving. Tom and Sarah are my friends too. I'm not letting this wreck their night." She stared at me like she didn't recognize the person standing in front of her. Then bolted alone. I stayed another hour, chatting with everyone, acting completely unfazed. People kept checking on me. I just shrugged. Looks like Jenna's got some things to sort out with her buddy. Overnight, the narrative flipped. I wasn't the insecure guy anymore. I was the one who'd been publicly disrespected. The drive home was a preview of hell. My phone lit up with frantic texts. Apologies for Daniel. Accusations at me for abandoning her. I didn't read a single one. When I walked into the apartment, she was sitting in the dark, still wearing the crooked halo, looking like a broken Christmas ornament. "We need to talk," she declared the second I flipped on the light. "Okay," I said, calm. "Talk." She unleashed. Daniel was a predator. She'd never led him on. It was all his fault. Then the blame shifted to me for not protecting her, for letting him drink, for being distant. I let her scream herself empty. When she finally stopped, panting, I walked to the counter and picked up the lease renewal notice that had been sitting there for days. "I heard you at the barbecue," I said quietly, "when you told everyone Daniel treats you better than I ever will." When they all laughed. Her face went white. "That was just girl talk. It didn't sound like girl talk. It sounded like the truth. So I decided to let you live it. I gave you all the freedom you claimed you wanted. No jealousy, no rules, all the time in the world with him. I wanted you to experience the full better treatment package." I let that sink in. The proposal story I fed Tom? Fake. I just needed a photographer on standby. Needed everyone to see what I'd seen for months. That he's not your friend. He's a guy waiting to sleep with his friend's girlfriend. And you're the girl who liked the attention so much you were willing to trash her actual boyfriend to keep getting it. I dropped the lease papers on the coffee table. "Lease is up in 60 days. I already told the landlord I'm not renewing. I've signed a new place. For one, you've got 2 months to figure out your next address. Maybe Daniel has a couch." Her voice came out a broken whisper. "You planned all of this." "No," I corrected. "You planned to keep a safe boyfriend who paid bills and an ego-boosting best friend on the side. You just never expected the two worlds to crash into each other. Now they have." I walked into the bedroom and shut the door. The silence from the living room felt better than any shouting match ever could. Final update: the next 60 days were a slow-motion car crash I got to watch from the front row, and it was glorious. Jenna cycled through every textbook stage. First, denial. She acted like everything was normal, brewing coffee, asking about my day. I answered in monosyllables and slept on the couch. The apartment became a museum of tension. Then the social fallout hit. The party photos went public. The photographer posted a highlight reel, including a razor-sharp sequence of Daniel lunging and Jenna recoiling. Our entire friend group saw it. Daniel became persona non grata overnight. He deleted all socials and vanished. Jenna lost her primary validation source in one evening. Some of her friends actually texted me apologies, admitting they'd had no idea how weird things really were. I forgave them, but I remembered. Bargaining phase was pathetic. She slid a 4-page handwritten letter under my door. How she'd taken me for granted. How Daniel had manipulated her. Promises of therapy and blocking him forever. I read it, stuck a Post-it on it that said, "Too late," and slid it back. She realized I was serious when my new furniture started arriving, new couch, new bed, delivered to the apartment I was still legally on. Watching the delivery guys carry my new sofa past her while she sat on the floor surrounded by packing tape was poetic. Anger came next. 2 weeks before move out, she cornered me in the kitchen and screamed for 40 minutes. Called me a psychopath, said I'd ruined her life, destroyed her reputation and her most important friendship. I waited till she was done, then said, "You humiliated me in front of your friends for months. You entertained another man while I paid for the roof over your head. All I did was remove the blindfold. If you hate what you see in the mirror, that's not my fault." The final week she just looked small. She accepted it was over and started packing. She couldn't afford the apartment alone, nowhere close. She had to call her parents and ask to move back into her teenage bedroom. The same parents she used to brag to about her perfect independent city life. Moving day, she sat on a mountain of boxes watching me load the truck. One last time she asked if there was any chance. "No, Jenna," I said, not cruel, just final. "You made your choice at that barbecue. It just took a while for the bill to come due. I've been in my new place a month now. The silence is beautiful. I've reconnected with my real friends, the ones who never liked her drama. Life is lighter." Word is she's back in her parents' house an hour outside the city. Daniel is a ghost, and most of the old friend group has quietly distanced themselves, exhausted by her one bad night ruined everything sob story that conveniently ignores the months of disrespect that led to it. The sweetest part isn't even the revenge. It's the clarity. I never had to beg her to see my value. I simply stepped out of the way and let her perform on the stage she always wanted. She gave the performance of a lifetime, and the audience finally saw the real show. She wanted to be treated better. Now she gets to live with exactly what her better actually was. A humiliating, lonely dead end.